hello again. Welcome back to all of you who already joined us before, and a very warm welcome to everyone who's new here with us at the Falling Walls Breakthrough Conversations. I'm really glad you're with us today because you can expect roughly 20 minutes with really awesome designers. And my name is Alina Schadwinkel. I'm managing editor online of Spektrum der Wissenschaft. I got a bunch of questions with me. Still, there are probably more questions one could ask, and that's what you're here for. So if you got any questions, please feel free to use the raise your hand option at Zoom, and my colleagues will tell me that there's a question popping up, and I will include it into our talk. It's an interactive format. Please don't be shy. Please raise your hand. With me today are not only one, but two guests. It's a very special session. It's Monika Seyfried and Cyrus Clarke. Both are designers with a similar approach, I may say. Monika's research focuses on how living systems and the natural world can help us to establish new perspectives on the future of technology and ecosystems. And Cyrus' focus lies on shifting notions of nature and technology through the creation of artistic pieces. It's a very special topic, and I'm very glad I can be here with you. Thank you so much for being with us today. You've created an interactive installation called Data Garden. It's an organism-based data center. And it utilizes DNA technology to store and retrieve digital data from the DNA of plants, which in return create energy and absorb carbon dioxide. So, this project offers a vision of a world where design is in a collaboration between living things, ecosystems, and technologies. Lots of plants involved, at least that's what it looked like. So, Monika, do you have a green thumb?
Definitely a bit of a special one. Meaning I'm really interested in the properties that plants can offer us more in the future. So that is my take on the green thumb that I have.
Okay, so more seriously, what does one need? What does it need to make a data garden work, Monika? Which gadget, what type of software, what tech is involved?
Yeah, so in here we are really working with biotechnology. So really thinking about tools and things that we would normally find in the lab. When we think about data storage, we often think about the cloud, the data farms, artificial intelligence or intelligent machines that are running it in different environments. Here we're more shifting towards a lab, towards a space where we can work with nature on a macro scale, and that is sort of the environment that is needed for data storage in plants.
Thank you. So Clarke, maybe, Cyrus, maybe you can, we don't have a picture with us here today, so it might be hard to imagine what that garden looks like. Could you paint the picture for us?
Yeah, yeah, of course. So I think it's important to say, of course, that the Data Garden is an artistic installation. So when we were conceiving it, we were trying to think about how we could take this very complex science and place it into a form which kind of makes sense and speaks to this future, which you've already described, around technology being linked to nature, and specifically thinking of how we could store data in plants. And the design we came up with in collaboration with some architects resembles something that you might imagine in the future of a decentralized data center that you could have literally in your garden. And it's built out of components that you could design yourself and create yourself. So there's almost like a manual that you would get in IKEA, and you would assemble the parts and be able to grow the garden. And then from there, obviously, there's some complicated biotechnology and synthetic biology, which maybe is beyond the reach of most people today. But when we conceived the piece, it was always thinking about this future where the technology would be in the hands of ordinary people, rather like something like, let's say, Arduino, which put computing and programming in the hands of the layman. So we were really inspired by that kind of technology and that kind of approach. And yeah, when you enter the data garden, you obviously are surrounded by some really nice plants, but you also have a way to interact with the data inside of the plant. So you can take samples from the plants, which are in liquid DNA form, read it using a sequencer, and it's visualized on a screen.
So what type of data are we talking about? What information can I see on the screen, or what information do you read out of the plants?
So at the moment, it's very, very small files, digital files, basically. And we mostly worked with things that would be feasible today. So this meant text files or very, very small images, because there are some quite strong constraints around how much data we could store, both in DNA and also in the plants themselves. It's not only a technical constraint, it's of course a time constraint and a cost constraint, because when you're working with an artistic project like the Data Garden is and was, we don't have unlimited research funds. So technically we could go further and store much more data, but it's a different kind of budget and a different kind of project. From the kind of work we were doing, it was small kilobytes of data, basically.
Okay, so it is an artistic project, but it does work.
Of course, I mean, what's important really to say about this, and maybe Monika will jump in a bit because I'm speaking a lot, but for us, the project is very much a collaboration, a true collaboration between art and science, where it's not artists taking a scientist's work and interpreting it and creating something new. It's neither us just trying to do science communication. It's really where we came up with an idea as non-scientists, found scientists who were interested in this new, weird, radical idea, and then together we kind of created something that was more than the sum of its parts, basically.
Thank you. So Monika, what was most challenging working with scientists, being a designer, having this idea, and to actually make this vision a reality?
I think we can, I hope we can agree here. Actually, I think we're very lucky with this project in terms of really having a smooth collaboration where scientists were actually really interested in what we're doing, and they were willing to give us much more information and much more time and much more resources that we actually asked for. And you know, I think we've both been working on other different projects when you're involved in collaborations between art and science, and that's not always the case. Obviously, as artists, we speak different languages. We need to come together to establish new kind of ways of communication about a certain topic so that we can understand each other and align on the vision and so on. But in here, it kind of felt very, just very, very smooth. So there's nothing in my head that pops up when I think of what was the most challenging. I think it was rather a very exciting journey of just cracking on the science and trying to make something that has never been done before, in a way, of encoding information into plants for an artistic piece happen.
Cyrus, you want people to experience data and explore a world where data storage is truly green. Not only you, but you want to do that too. That sounds as if data storage might be a huge problem and energy intense. So basically brings me to the really basic question, why do this at all?
Yeah, so the project really began with that topic. So we were researching data in 2017, and we saw there was a huge environmental impact. Not just things like greenhouse gases, but there's a huge thing to unpack around data storage and data infrastructure in general. So we came up with a term which we kind of thought was smart to encapsulate all of this, which we named data warming. And for us, that really encapsulated not only the greenhouse gas emissions, but the energy consumption, the land usage, the resource usage, the amount of rare earth minerals we need, all of the algorithms that are processed, and how this will expand in the future as we have exponential technologies like 5G, 6G, AI protocols, blockchain protocols, and all these kinds of things running in the cloud all the time. So that trend is only going to get worse. And when we did this research at the beginning of 2017, we were already at around 3 to 4% of total greenhouse gas emissions within the data industry and around 2% of global energy consumption, which right now is obviously a huge topic around both of those things. But maybe right now, maybe everyone is more focused on the energy consumption due to current events. So that's a trend that's not getting better. And at the same time, like the renewable energy that is going in to make data storage green, quote unquote, is something that we need for other countries, other uses. So it's something that we need to have a different approach to, and that's why we started working on finding an alternative, I would say.
Do you agree?
Well, yeah, definitely. I think one thing definitely are these like ecological kind of concerns that we all have around the digitalization in general. But I think within that topic, it's the project also delivers quite a lot in terms of educating people around these issues. And when we really started, it was interesting to see that people really had a very low awareness around this subject. And I think this project also helped them understand what actually, how does the mechanisms around data actually work, who has the ownership over your information, and all of these other things that are kind of also connected to the whole area of data in general.
Ownership, it's an interesting point, because if I would have my own data garden, I would be the owner and the data would not be somewhere in the cloud, but it would be mine, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's where the name Grow Your Own Cloud comes from. So in essence,
That's the byline, right? Grow Your Own Cloud.
Well, that's the name of the organization. And that came very naturally, forgive the pun, but it was very much around thinking around the cloud and understanding that we outsource our data to these very far-flung places to be run by machines and by monopolistic entities. And it's a really strange model for something which is at essence very precious and very personal. Like our data, some of it maybe isn't that personal. It might just be random bits of data and metadata on the internet. But a lot of it is like historical images or important transactions we've made, even if that's considered important to you. So the fact that all of this is stored so far away from you, outside of your control, is a really weird tension. And I think for us, when creating this, on one side, there was this whole ecological angle, but also this ownership angle of giving data ownership back to the people and basically encouraging them to take care of their data, and also simultaneously helping to take care of nature and creating those two messages at the same time.
How do you store data at the moment? Or where? You go first and then just hand over the
Lots of different ways. Of course, we use the cloud. And I think that's also an interesting point in our work, where we're not saying everyone should stop using technology or stop using the cloud. We don't believe in that kind of approach. But it's about thinking how we can mitigate things and manage things in the best way. So a lot of things need to be in the cloud because we need them for real-time access. I want to have maps on my phone when I'm navigating. It would be pretty useless if I have to go home and get it out, like get navigation from a hard drive. But there's lots of photos I used to have on the cloud, which I now have across a few different hard drives for redundancy and make sure that I take care of that data and it's not in the cloud. That's something that I've done. Monika probably has done similar things.
Yeah, have you changed something, Monika?
In terms of my relationship with data?
Exactly, yeah. Thank you for precise.
Yeah. No, of course. I think I try to clean the amounts of data that I'm not using often. So things that, are there that I don't need, just simply letting it go. I think that's the first action you can take. But also, I think, honestly, just communicating about that problem to my family, colleagues, people around me, of like, for them to start taking action as well. Of course, this project is, aiming to have impact in across, different places, working with the industry, working with the art spaces and so on. But I think really equally important, we can also just encourage all the people around us to start thinking about that in a more sustainable way.
Yeah, you encouraged the idea that storage of data could actually remove CO2 from the atmosphere. How so? I would like to focus on that a bit more.
I mean, when working with organisms such as plants, of course, they are just having these amazing properties. So if we could imagine this interesting, rather out there idea that we're switching from server farms to, let's say, data forests. Suddenly we have big lands of organisms such as trees that obviously would have this new ecological impact, meaning they would actually reduce the carbon emissions by taking in CO2.
Okay. Can you think of any other ways to save energy while storing data, Cyrus?
I think the big companies already know they have to do this. They've been working really hard on making things incredibly efficient. I think like the data industry is already like incredibly efficient, but it's just that it's very, very hard to continue in the model that we're currently pursuing and see that we won't use nearly all the energy that we have on data storage at some point in the future. It's a really strange phenomenon. So yeah, of course, I think we need to think about having different streams of data, and I think that's what we're really advocating. So let's think about some data going to the cloud in those huge server farms, which need tons of energy and lots of resources. But there's other ways that individuals can manage their data, as I've said, using other types of devices that are already available today, like hard drives, which are much more energy efficient than storing your data in the cloud. And eventually, once DNA data storage becomes viable from a technical and economic point of view, it's going to be really effective for long-term data archival. It will be by far the most efficient way to store data for hundreds, if not thousands of years, with close to no energy being required. And I think what Monika said is, of course, where our idea comes in, which is extending that to say, well, DNA data storage would be incredibly sustainable, let's say, but what if it could be regenerative? What if we can use that living technology to really proliferate forests and afforestation, bring nature back to the city and things like that? And I think that's a really meaningful and interesting concept that's worth pursuing.
Okay, do you want to add something? I saw you nodding.
Which takes us to this amazing paradigm shift that I think this project is delivering, which is about encouraging people to taking care of nature while taking care of their data. You don't really want your plant to die. You really want to take care of it and in a meaningful way. So that is also, I think, a very just interesting kind of idea that we want to test with people, or just at least like hear their opinion of how they would feel if the nature has this additional new value, right? If it's hosting important data of ours, of companies, would that mean that we would start inviting more nature, as Sarah said, to the city, to our homes, and yeah, just give it a bit of a different status, if I may say.
So that would mean, though, that if the plant dies, my data is gone?
No, not really.
Okay.
That's an interesting question. So, no, if the plant dies, if we're really lucky, we can still retrieve data for quite a long time.
Because I'm not good with this.
Yeah, I know, right?
It scares me, that one. Sorry, please continue.
But it would be interesting, like if I may ask you, like if we would put your something that's important for you, let's say family photos, into a plant, would you feel like you would select the right plant for your environment and like give it an extra care? I feel like I think that people might start looking into taking care of that whole process a bit more, of selecting the right plants and the right environment for them.
It would be another motivation to take care of our
mean.
surroundings. Yeah, I love that idea. So we talked a lot about this project. Have any companies approached you? Do they want to take it further from what it is so far?
Yeah, so the project evolved quite quickly. I mean, when we made the data garden, that was in 2020. And that was a really strong moment for us because it proved this technology could work, both in terms of encoding and decoding the data. And that proof of concept has obviously got some attention, and quite a few companies have started approaching us. It's interesting because, of course, they see immediately the vision, because that's what we typically talk about. We're talking about a futuristic vision. And I think people's expectation of technology now is that these visions are available right now. So our work is almost in stewarding, well, there are lots of steps to get to this idea of ubiquitous DNA data storage or making that viable, things like a data forest, it's multiple decades away. But what are the steps to get there? And there's incremental steps. So I think that's what we're focusing on right now, which is finding partners and collaborators who want to pursue those steps through a series of projects and collaborations. And that might lead to products to begin with. That's what we're really exploring right now, actually. Eventually services at some point in the future when that becomes more viable. But it's more thinking about, as I say, these like building blocks that are required. And I think our role in this, because we're designers, we're not scientists.
Exactly, yeah.
Is thinking of the applications.
Okay.
It's not about the fundamental research, of course.
Yeah, because that's actually one of the last questions I would like to ask you. Is being a designer, you kickstarted this, and now it's growing to a business, maybe to being applied. Like, at what point will you have to say, okay, now I let it go? I did what I could. Like, what would be the moment where you say, okay, now I did as a designer all I could do, and now I will think of another big project?
Yeah, I think for me, the moment I would see this having like an impact around, saying everyday people would be too much, I suppose, but like really saying that it has an impact among probably industry in some level, I think that would be where I would feel satisfied, and I would feel like either the message is being carried around the data storage and around the consumption of the energy, or obviously if we could make it happen that we actually start working with some sort of with DNA data storage more frequently would be amazing.
Thank you. How about you, Sar?
I think there's a trend now where, especially in technology, a lot of things are being run by designers or people from slightly less engineering background, ironically. But I think in this particular project, it requires a whole suite of people. And I think that's what we're imagining. And that's what we're trying to build right now. We're trying to build this community or ecosystem around the project rather than it being a company, and thinking about how we can involve more designers, more even artists, like more out there artists, but of course engineers and the fundamental scientists and ethical researchers and all of these people coming together, and potential users thinking about how this thing should grow and what it should resemble, rather than it being, again, another engineering-led endeavor which was built upon scientific research, which 20 years later has to think about, oh no, we forgot about this ethical issue because we just thought about execution. And I think that's where our approach is really interesting and slightly different.
Thank you. Well, I would think that one step taken is speaking at the Falling Walls about this and being part of the breakthrough conversations, just because you reach scientists as well as designers and a very various amount of audience. So thank you so much for being here with us. If I would like to see the data garden, is there an exhibition going on somewhere where I could actually see it in real life?
Yeah, so it seems to be touring the world at the moment, but where is it now? It's in Madrid. It's currently in Madrid at the Telefonica Foundation until March or April, as part of a really interesting exhibition called Code and Algorithms. You can also see it on the internet on our website, growyourown.cloud, and it's on YouTube and all those lovely cloud places.
Okay.
Where you can stream it.
It's for now. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will now take a short break from the conversations. For all of you leaving us now, take care and goodbye. But I strongly suggest waiting 5 minutes and staying for my colleague who will talk to Sheila Jazanov. She explores the role of science and technology in the law, politics, and policy of modern democracies. Again, thank you, you two. It's been a pleasure having you here. And thank you, everyone out there.